Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Scott Schell and I'm a specialist in the Germanic languages. I have a bachelor's degree in German, a master's degree in linguistics, and a PhD in Germanic linguistics from the University of California, Berkeley. And in today's video, what I want to do is go ahead and continue the discussion of the Old Saxon rune series. We're going to focus on THURIS today. So THURIS is actually derived from Proto-Germanic THURISAZ, so you're probably more familiar with it in that form. It is also found in the Old Norse material as well. In the Old Icelandic rune poem, it's known as THURIS, as well as the Old Norwegian rune poem, it's known as THURIS. However, in the Old English tradition, it is known as Thorn. Thorn is actually not related to this, as in related to Thurs or THURISAZ, and therefore, as we see it in the Old English rune poem, it may actually lend credence to the idea that there were multiple rune names for each rune, or perhaps it's just simple Christian influence that's going on here. So the rune name THURIS is actually not attested in the Helion. It is, however, arguably attested in the Abecedarium Normannicum, in which case there we see it spelled as THURIS. Now, if this were actually Old High German, you would see that that TH should be a D. And it is not an Old Norse form because you would not expect to see that either between the R and the S. So this is potentially evidence that this is a Low German form at least concerning THURIS or THURISAZ in the Old Saxon tradition. So that being said, there are three different classes, quote-unquote, of giants that we're familiar with. One, at least in the greater Germanic tradition, one is like the Ettins, or sometimes called the Jotnar. We also see the Thorsar, and then we also see the Rissar. So the two classes that are most commonly discussed are the Jotnar and the Thorsar. So the Jotnar are, of course, found in the Scandinavian tradition along with the Thorsar. But the Jotnar are sort of not really looked at as a malevolent class of beings because they actually marry, for example, the Aesir gods and goddesses. However, the Thorsar are not favored. And in fact, they are sort of seen as these sort of awe-inspiring or fear-inspiring beings. For example, Ymir is referred to as a rhyme Thurs, in which case, when Gangleri visits the High One, he asks the High One, who is also Odin, do you consider the Thurs's gods? And actually, they don't actually consider them gods whatsoever, and in fact he responds to Gangleri and says specifically, not at all do we acknowledge him as an Ymir to be a god. He was evil, and all of his descendants. We call them the Frost Giants, or the Hrim Thorsar. So, furthermore, this Rissar class that I had mentioned before doesn't come up in the Eddic material. This is usually a class of quote-unquote giants. These ones are actually giant, unlike the other two. They're actually giant in size, and they appear in the later folklore material. And for my German speakers out there, it is directly related to the word Riese. So, typically, these giants are associated with mountains, and so they are giant in that sense. And so the reason I bring this up is because we actually see the phrase Risilik Jewerk in Old Saxon. And the Risilik Jewerk refers to apparently some sort of mighty edifice that was sort of fear-inspiring and probably reminded the Saxon of the giants when this phrase was being used. And in fact, we see the modern Dutch word for this, and it actually means fear-inspiring. And so it's fear-inspiring, but it's also tied to the giants in this sense because this word is directly related to the Rissar or the Riese in German. So we can actually get a little bit of info too for this word, as in the word THURIS in the Old High German material, because we see it there actually spelled D-U-R-I-S, in which case we would expect for an Old High German form. And we get a little bit of info from this because it's glossed in Latin to specifically mean, like, I think it's daemonium and orcus and deus. So literally like demon, orc, and then probably some sort of pagan god. So we can get that sort of information, you know, out of the Old High German material to understand this word as a whole for the like continental sources. The word etten is also used, for example, in the Old English Beowulf, and that is again related to Jotun, and it wasn't anything that was, again, anything that was benevolent. And in fact, Grendel, of course, is described as sort of this this figure that is unwanted, right? So I'm going to actually go ahead and read you a passage from Beowulf so you get an idea of the view of the Etten, and just kind of the where the Ettens reside, and at least from the Old English perspective. So here's a passage from Beowulf. One who was misshapen, stalked by the marshy wastes in the tracks of an exile, except that he was larger than any other man. In earlier days, the people of the region named him Grendel. They know of no father from the old time before them among dark spirits. A secret land they guard, high wolf country, windy cliffs, a dangerous way twisting through fens, where a mountain torrent plunges down crags under darkness of hills, the flood under the earth. Not far from here, measured in miles, lies that fearful lake overhung with roots that sag and clutch, frost-bound trees at the water's edge. Each night there is seen a baleful wonder, strange water fires. No man alive, though old and wise, knows that mere bottom. The strong heath runner chased far by hounds, the full-horned stag may seek a safe cover, pursued to despair. Still he will sooner die on the bank than save his head and plunge into the mere. Not a pleasant place. And so you can see too, from the Old English materials, even the Ettens are not exactly liked. So as far as the Old Saxon material is concerned, we just see it there as in the Risar material, and then as in like the Risar class of giants. And we can get a little bit of information from the Old High German sources, and then of course we have the modern Dutch cognate that tells us that it is something that is fear-inspiring. So, like usual in my rune series, I will go ahead and read you a poem that I have reconstructed. It's reconstructed in the sense of it's reconstructed in historical phonology and reconstructed in Germanic alliterative verse, but again, it is my own personal interpretation of how I resonate with this particular rune name. THURIS is trouwwerk oeserot joda machtig, rekt in a warm risiono niedhudigen. THURIS is trouwwerk oeserot joda machtig, rekt in a warm risiono niedhudigen. So this literally means THURIS is a mighty pain to our people. Destroy the hateful worm of the giants. And so you can see with trouwwerk, that actually is kind of an interesting word for pain, because it is literally like in throws. It's like a throw work. And then as far as the word for giant here, I've chose to use, of course, the risiono, in which case is a genitive plural. So anyway, that is my take on it. Just one instance on how you can sort of resonate with this whole tradition. And if you are interested in seeing these poems in their entirety, you can go ahead and now purchase, if you'd like, the rune poems, A Reawakened Tradition. The first half of this book consists of historical context of these actual poems like the Old English rune tradition, the Old Norwegian rune rhyme, and the Old Icelandic rune poem. And we have all kinds of new footnotes in there regarding these new poems, and all kinds of really good info in there regarding these new poems, and new translations by Michael Moynihan, in which case are excellent. And then in the second half of the book, it consists of runers' interpretations of different rune poems as well. So showing you how to sort of bridge the gap and bring the past to the present. Anyway, that is all I have for you today. Go ahead and like the videos, subscribe, share the video, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.